Hey, greetings, everybody. I'm Terry Shuff, the pastor of Bull City Outreach Ministries. I guess I know about half. Usually it's a lot higher than that, but just to let you know a little bit about the type of ministry that we do. I have a storefront in the worst block of Durham, North Carolina. And we operate out on the streets in our storefront, and also I'm a chaplain in the Durham County Jail. I work as an advocate with people that are truly trying to get their lives together in the court systems. And I have a good enough relationship with the people in the bad areas of Durham that the Durham Police Department calls me to all the murder scenes. So I stay pretty busy in Durham. But as I've listened to the different things that the different speakers have said, everything ties in with what the Lord has really laid on my heart. And, Pastor Troy talked about intimacy. And, the fact that we're not anything special, the ones that are up here. We're just ones that have been doing it for quite a while. Pastor Steve last night, he talked about the thickness of our walls, and that's going to tie in with what I've got to say. And just talking a little bit about that, see, people, Romans 2:16 says that God's going to judge the secrets of man. I mean, those thin walls that some of us walk around with in churches, and we know all the Christianese language, so we can fit in. But as some others have talked about, they're more interested in pleasing man. And these are different areas that I've struggled with, and I'm going to share some of that as we go along. Brother Ron was speaking about character. Yesterday I just got in on the end of Brother Lance's, but he was talking about being in. And that's something I talk to people a lot about, is being all in. And, you've got people, again, they're faking. And my average for speaking in churches is once. I get to speak here a lot more. A lot of the same type of people. But, I believe that over 90% of the people in most churches are unsaved. And that doesn't preach real well in a lot of churches. But a lot of people are in trouble. Pastor Sam was sharing at breakfast this morning about how I missed his whole, I didn't get in until, I don't even know what day it is now, but I didn't get in time. But he was talking about stones being refined. But people, what I really want, to talk to you about it, are you truly living out your full potential for the Lord? Or are you thinking that, I could never be as good as somebody else? I can never speak. I'll never speak like Pastor Jerry speaks. I don't need to. I mean, we're different tools. And that's what people have to get into their heads. Because, see, as a child, you start picking up things, family things. I mean, I come from a broken family. My dad left, I think sometime, he might have left before I was in the second grade, I don't know, but he was gone. So it was a thing of, my mom was an alcoholic and a pill popper. And, my dad, he was a very angry guy. I was with my mom and dad, but then my dad left. Then I ended up with my dad. But see, I'm one that I have no memory whatsoever of my mom and dad ever getting along. I was one that I always thought, why can't I be as good as the other people? Why can't I live that life? Why can't I be the all-American family? But see, all those things have an effect on us. All those things, that they may not seem big at one time, but they're suppressing us. think about things, I mean, you get kids in school, kids can be mean. Talk about the way you look, your hair's greasy, your clothes are wrinkled. And this is a classic one. The old deal where you're getting ready to play football, and okay, you be a captain, you be a captain. You got all these people around. And see, for me, that was one of the bright spots in my life. Because usually I'd get picked first because of my size. But there wasn't a lot of bright spots in my life. But then I would always think about, as they kept picking, and then, of course, all the kids are looking like, oh, man. And then especially if there's an oddball. And, oh, man, you got Joey. No, I don't want Joey. No, you take him. No, I don't want him. And you think about what that does. Did Joey end up being a mass murderer? Because of having that kind of life? But see, I went through that stuff all my life, never figuring I could be as good as the next person. And the Lord told me there would be people in here today that have struggled with that. And see, I'm going to take you back to, it was, let me see, it's February, March 1999. That was my first Mardi Gras. I walk in, I'm hearing all the stories, I'm looking around, at all the different leaders and thinking, man, I would love to sometime fit into that. And you back then you just see all these guys and think, this is going to be another area that I'll be able to exist in. Again, never thinking that the Lord could use me. But the thing is, I tell people on the streets, if he can use me, he can use any of you. I didn't come out of alcohol and drugs and profanity and womanizing and all that till I was 37 years old. And see, Pastor Jerry, you beat me, man. But now I'm 59 years old. And see, when I did come out of that stuff, though, I came out February 20th, 1994. I was in Dallas, or Fort Worth, Texas, at an Amway convention, and I got clean that day. Pastor Sam. But yeah, I mean, I quit everything that day. And you talk to people on the street, oh, you didn't backslide? No, I didn't backslide. I was sick of that life. I never returned to that. And over the course of the years, the Lord has just really just shown me over and over. And I'm not saying I've arrived. I don't believe anybody's arrived. But that old stuff, and people, generational curses, we need to be teaching on generational curses out on the streets. That my mom being an alcoholic, pill popper, I found that bottle of lime vodka when I was 13 years old and found that was my liquid backbone. And then, as I went along, I got into drugs and just doing all kinds of different things. But, there's no turning back. And all you have to do is make a decision that you're going to serve Jesus, and you don't have to do it the way, anybody else does it. You do what the Lord's called you to do. And you step up regardless of what the situation is. If you know the Lord's leading you, you don't have to follow what your pastor in the church says. I have people that tell me, well, I'm thinking about coming out with you, but I got to get permission from my pastor. I said, well, tell your pastor to come out, and most of them won't. But it's a thing that in the churches, the body is going to go where the head goes. You know, if they aren't after the lost, I mean, I love seeing pastors down here out on the streets, because you may get them one time, or they might do their once a year thing. We have churches that contact me and say, hey, we want to come and we want to do an outreach, and you don't see them until the next year, if you see them at all. And they get down there, and they have a prostitute around them, somebody with needle tracks all over. You know, the new thing that's going on, I don't think it's all that new, but see, when you lose the veins, then now they're shooting in their foreheads. You know, you want to get one-on-one with me while we're here, I'll show you some pictures. You know, I think of a girl named Kelly Hawkins, sweet as could be. But see, her dad actually tied her arm up on her 18th birthday and shot heroin into her. Her mom stepped out in front of a bus and committed suicide. But I sit with Kelly in the jail. And you know, any of these people, these prostitutes, I love them. You know, I've told people, but you know, I say I'm one of the few guys that can, when I preach, I say that I can go home and tell my wife I've been with several prostitutes and she's okay with it. You know, I'm with a prostitute just about every day of my life. I'm with a murderer, you know, just, you know, every week, or multiple murders. We have, in the Durham County Jail, we have 40 to 50 people in there for murder. Starting out at 16 years old. Does anybody, that's the first state I knew of that would put 16-year-olds in with the adults. But, and I think it's bad. I've told the jail staff, you know, you're putting a kid in with these adults, and you're just throwing them into more spirits. But I mean, we've got even, I'll talk more about this on Thursday, but we've got, well, I think of one 13-year-old, did a home invasion with a shotgun and a pistol. His mama come in our place crying. He said, Pastor Terry, please, I'm afraid my son's going to die. Will you go to court with me? So I end up in court with her, and the judge court orders this kid to spend 2 hours a week with me on the streets. First thing I do, we had a gang member that was a drug deal gone bad. The gang member was shot in the face. And so I thought, this is the first thing I'm going to do with him. I'm going to take him to this funeral. And they had patched his face up and had an open casket. So I stood up there with him for several minutes, and I told him, this is you if you don't get your life together. 13 years old, he's already been shot, thinks he's invincible. But if we don't reach these kids, this nation's really in trouble. But, you know, just to give you a little more history, those that don't know me, I mean, you know, getting saved, again, February 20th, 1994. You know, I sat in church for 4 years. Became an elder in the church, sat up on the front row and did all that stuff. And I thought, man, this is sickening. This isn't the same stuff that I'm reading in the Bible. And you know, that first Mardi Gras that I went to, I noticed all these black shirts. And I think Holly's the only one from that group, and of course Mel. But there's several in here. But you know, I kept watching them all the time, and I didn't want to be with the crew that I came down with, and plus I didn't want to be in the camp that I was in. And to jump ahead on that, I started with Raven in 2004, and you know, I loved getting down to New Orleans those other years, and I'd ask everybody, you know, where's Pastor Troy at? You know, and I'd track him down, and then, you know, again in 2004 we started Raven Midwest, and you know, we had just the blessing of being able to go over and work with Pastor Sam in Pennsylvania, and just really went all over the place. Pastor Troy and I got a bunch of stories. And Mel, we tell everybody if you're counting on a driver, he's the worst possible one you can have with you. He does a lot of other stuff good, though. But, from Raven Midwest, then I said I'd never leave Indiana. I'm from northern Indiana. Told my buddy Steve I'd never leave him. I left him. But then we went down and we helped with the beginning of Raven Daytona Beach. And at that time I was married to Eileen, which is many know here, and she passed away in 2011 of brain and lung cancer. And Brother Al, I know where you're at, man. Every time I look at you, I know what's going on in your heart. But encourage Brother Al when you guys, this week. Because what he's doing right now, attending these things, that's one of the hardest things. I had to, when my wife was gone, I had to stay out. I'd stayed on the street 16, 20 hours, focusing on other people. Because, people say, well, I've lost my mom, I've lost my dad. It's nothing until you lose a spouse. But kind of got off track on that one, but it's important. But, let me see, when was it? It was, next Sunday, it'll be 7 years that I've been in Durham. And again, my daughter and son-in-law, my grandkids lived in Raleigh. We'd go visit. I don't say anymore that I'm never going to do something, because I said I'd never move there. And that's where I ended up. But don't ever say never, because the Lord can take that back. But, this has just been an experience for me there. I drove the streets for over just about 6 years. Operated out of my van around there. But, again, I'm going to go into that a lot more on Thursday, just what goes on there. But it's a city that, there's many cities in trouble. But, when we see in the scriptures the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. And it comes again from people that are following. Pastor Jerry, as I walked in, he was just talking about Christians that draw dust. And there's a lot of truth to that, but I even question the fact that whether they're saved. And I really stick a lot on Hebrews 12:14 with people. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. We got to be striving for holiness, people. It's time to quit making excuses. You hear all kinds of excuses, and somebody, I think it was Pastor Steve that was talking about that. People, I don't feel good, this, that, all the time the people are dying and going to hell. I'll tell you a story on Thursdays, on this Thursday that I hope will encourage you to go out. Because the things I've seen, you want to, I tell pastors, you want to really preach at the ideal spot. Nobody's going to be looking around, nobody's going to be sleeping, and nobody's going to go anywhere. But people, I preach a lot when there's a dead body laying there under a sheet. And that's full attention. And I talk to people, I tell them, you still have breath. That person don't. And I'm running into more and more people as I get more time there that I know who's underneath that sheet. I've talked to them. 9 prostitutes are gone today that I've ministered to. 7 murdered, 2 overdosed. young kids. I was speaking with a young man. He's not in here. The tall black guy that's here. I just knew that we'd have some things in common. But he said, I'm 22 years old. I said, I could show you a wall with names on it. The majority of them are 16 to 25 years old. But see, people, you get the church folks, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to get they keep trying to, settle down. And see what that is, people? They don't want you to do things because it's going to expose just what they're not doing. And that's the truth of this thing. And for me, it's, they say like 2% of professing Christians share their faith on a daily basis. That's sickening. There's no way in the world that I want to be in that 2%. I got to tell people about Jesus every day. And we don't do it because we're afraid of what somebody's going to say. We can't get nobody to go with us. All these different things. I had this girl that she's in Detroit now, but I noticed she was walking Holloway Street, and I knew she was from a church, and her name is Jenny. And so one day she stops by my place. I said, Jenny, what are you doing out there? She said, well, I walk the street. And then when these Johns, these perverts, as I call them, I don't use a speaker a whole lot, but I like to get on there and shout at the perverts sometime. But, she would get them to stop to proposition her, and then she'd share the gospel. How many Christian women that will do that? And then I told her one day, because she'd been doing that for a while, I said, Jenny, you want to expand your ministry? She goes, Pastor Terry, what are you talking about? I said, well, you'd be able to minister a lot more prostitutes if you do what I tell you. And she says, well, what's that? I said, well, see those steps over there? I said, go sit down on those steps. Well, what's going to happen? I said, just go over there, check it out. So, boy, she sits on those steps, and, of course, they got territories. In a minute, a prostitute, is, what are you? She's cussing and everything, asking why she's sitting on her steps. But, and again, it's not, you never want to lower the bar, but, people say, well, that's not for everybody. And, so many of you have ministered for so long, you've heard the thing, well, that's not my calling, and all the cheap excuses. I'm so tired of that. I mean, we have an application that people have to fill out before they can even participate in our ministry. Because I don't want these headaches. I don't want these people that are going to be out talking garbage. We got a once saved, always saved disease in Durham, that if you're that way or if you're racist, I had this black girl that she was a former lesbian, and excellent on the streets. And then you had that thing that happened in Missouri. Where was that at? The Ferguson. And I'm looking at her Facebook pages, and that's something I do is I look at people's Facebook pages too, because you can find out what's going on with folks. I encourage pastors to do that, but many of them are too scared to do that. They don't want that confrontation. But it's, I seen all the stuff, and then I got with her, and I said, girl, what is up with this stuff? Well, my people, no. There's only two groups of people that I deal with. That's children of God and children of the devil. So I told her, I said, I'm going to have to let you go. You need to turn your keys in. And when you get to the point where you love Jesus more than you love your skin color, come on back. But there's too many things out there now, and my team seems to stay pretty small. But, I don't want just anybody out there. The job is too important. And, the things that we get is, again, I'm going to talk about them a lot on Thursday. Thursday. I'm kind of getting towards Thursday now, but it's a thing, people, that the biggest thing I want to do is, what Pastor Troy said. It's nothing special to do what all these speakers do. I'm not putting it down. I mean, these guys are awesome. And every time, something else that went on with that as I think of that, when I looked at all the pictures of everybody speaking, you're always going to get that devil that's going to raise his head up. And just like Pastor Steve was saying last night, that the devil tells him, you can't preach. And, I was getting that thing, well, what are you doing on there? And that thing of I didn't measure up again. But we just got to keep digging in the Word, keep building ourselves up to get past that stuff. Well, that sounded weird. But, and it's my biggest reason for being up here right now is to just, you've got a guy that thought nothing of himself. I've got two brothers that are six-figure incomes. One of my brothers is in New Orleans, unsaved, but, big, thick wallet and everything. But I'm going to get his picture. I sent it to Pastor Troy a long time ago, but I want everybody down here to have his picture because I want people to nail him. I mean, that boy needs to get saved. But, I heard all my life, they were, I'm, again, the worst one of 8 kids, but my 2 older brothers, both of them are six-figure income people. Why can't you ever be with like your brothers? And the thing of it is now, I mean, I wouldn't exchange what I have for nothing. Their life. I mean, to be able to get up and share the gospel. People, I haven't had a paycheck since 2009. And I've never been late on a bill since 2009. See the Lord take care of all my needs. And really, it's just us stepping out and believing Matthew 6:33, seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness and letting him add everything else unto us. And there's been many times where I think I believe it all. I'm believing everything. Then he'll show me something else. But you continue to grow. You fall down and you get back up. And the biggest thing we've got going on in the professing body of Christ is that people don't want to stand for themselves. They want to be under a man instead of getting up and saying, you know what, I'm gonna take this thing by the horns and go after it. What the Lord has done for me has just been amazing. And I'm going to show you a video. I've got all kinds of things going on with this video now. I mean, the guy that produced it, I mean, he took a lot of time. He drove an hour, to each way, to work on this thing, and he had a film crew. He had all this different stuff, and because I knew what was going on, every time they'd start doing this stuff, talking about ministry, I'd have to leave. I'd go outside or somewhere else because I'm not into the thing of, drawing put the spotlight on me, and this is what I'm doing. And people tell me, call the media. They need to be down here and put on TV what you're doing. Why? But if the media shows up, I usually clear out. This thing that you're going to see, and the producer of it just contacted me not too long ago, and I could tell he was a little upset because I'm not using it very much. I don't know what I'm going to do with it because, I mean, it does shine the light on me more than I really want. Now, one thing else I'll say in there, well, a couple of things. One thing is you'll see a guy, I had a Messianic Jew with me for a while that he was wearing a sackcloth. And, that looked a little bit strange out there in the hood. I mean, you've got this little Messianic Jew out there, So, and it a lot of people always ask me about that, so I just figured I'd throw it out before. Then in the very end of it, it's over 100 degrees, and I'm about ready to pass out. So I'm not, that looks a little bit weird too, but it's just really some of the different city leaders were contacted about the ministry, and people, what that is it's just showing what the Lord can do with a broken vessel. And again, I want you to look at that and just, that can be anybody just, puts their nose to the grindstone and gets out there. I just go to work every day. And all these deaths that I'm seeing and everything with the people that I minister to, that's what keeps me going to work. That's what keeps fueling me to do what I do. And I want to say, I'll probably be repeating this, but anybody can go to juvenile court and listen to what's going on. And go and listen. You hear things of a 14-year-old holding a gun on her mother and on a mother and her children while adults cleaning their garage out. And again, these kids are doing home invasions, and that's in the gangs. That's popular. That's a thing that they have to do. The youngest gang member that I personally dealt with, because the mother contacted me, 8 years old. Think of the kids. And that's a common thing for mothers to, the word spreading. Get a hold of Pastor Terry. He'll work with your kids. We've got to. Or else this country is going to be if we don't reach these kids, this country is going to be so far out of control. I mean, it's so bad now. But check this out, and I'll come back up. Yeah, it was pretty funny. The deputy chief, just a solid spirit-filled Christian, but when he told me that, yeah, man, I was watching to see if you were real, that cracked me up. And then I ended up having a federal agent that she came to me, and she said, I've been watching you, because she thought I was crooked too, as far as she'd watched me with the prostitutes, just hoping that she was videotaping and everything, trying to get me. But that was pretty funny. But it is what it is, people, and it's just going. It's just going. I mean, in September of 1998, I left my house in Indiana crying because I didn't know how to start what I knew the Lord was stirring in me. I heard in a hotel room that I'd be on the street corner telling people about Him. And I ended up pulling in the parking lot at Prairie and Main in Elkhart, Indiana, and we stayed there over 7 years, and that's where Steve and I ministered together there, but we stayed there all that time. And it just started out, I passed out tracts out the window and said, God bless you, to everybody. God bless the drug dealer, God bless the molester, God blessed them all. I didn't know what to do. But then I went through times of seeing the Lord work. I had windows shot out right by where I was ministering. I'd have cars. There was construction going on. Cars were jumping the curb and stopping just short of me. I had a pit bull sicked on me one night, and the dog couldn't come near me. But he showed me over and over and over. And I, as far as like with Pastor Troy and Mel, I owe them. They were a big part. I mean, Bull City Outreach Ministries is a cutoff of Raven Ministries. I mean, I served in there for a long time, and I had a real blessed time as far as to be part of that. And nothing's really changed. We're still all connected. But we got about 10 minutes, and as far as anybody have any questions or anything? Go to your police department and ask them, where are you having the most problems? And see, when you go into these areas, and first off, especially many of the areas that I'm in are just, gangs are all over in them. Again, you heard, we have over 200 branches of gangs. You've got like 12 base, the gangs that everybody's heard of, but we've got all those branches off of that. But, that's a thing as far as going to the police department. And it's that thing of going with no fear. You take a grill out there, and you take some hot dogs out there, and nobody's going to get mad at you, and that's really a thing. And see, for me, especially when I first got into Durham, I tell people my hobbies are prostitutes and gangs, but I'd like to see where the gangs were hanging out. And I even rode with one of that's another good thing, to get in the squad car. They have ride-along programs, and get in the squad car and have them show you this stuff. But I was able to see where the gangs hang out. So, my van is, it's not as noticeable as Pastor Don's and Sabrina's, but it's pretty noticeable. But, I would stop and get out on the gang members. And see what that does is that throws them off. They're used to being the aggressor. And again, I didn't know them at that time, but to get out and I walk up to them and, I act like everybody's hanging out in the corner. Hey, what's up, guys? Or, I'd get a cross penny out of my pocket and I'd walk up to these gang members. And, a lot of what we deal with on a regular basis, well, our Holloway Street is Crip on one side and blood on the other side. So I'd know what I'm dealing with, but I'd walk up with a penny like this, and I said, guys, I'm just getting out of seeing if anybody needs a penny. You can imagine the look they give you, like, what is this crazy white boy doing? And then I hold that cross up like that. And I said, really, I'm here to see which one of you guys are serving Jesus. Then the only one that's going to speak is whichever one's the highest ranking there, because they don't speak out of order. And then so that was my focus. I could wear that one out. I'll tell you some more exciting gang stories on Thursday. They're getting where they like to show their guns and stuff now, but that gun doesn't rank higher than Jesus. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yep, and that's it. They want when they see. And it hasn't been me, but there's been riots stopped because I got there and started praying. And they see that stuff. Like that guy was the number 2 person on the Durham Police Department, but he calls me, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Well, people, I've got like video in my head as far as hearing a car come screeching up, and then hearing a mother, the scream in the dark. No, screaming no. Many of them. But see, that is the stuff that keeps me going. And see, many of these I'm still connected to. And I just feel like I get the best opportunity in ministry. There's many ministries, that are good. I just love what I do. Sis, you had a question? And I'll talk with you one-on-one, even out there, but again, it's just the devil. It's the devil suppressing us and getting us to believe that stuff. And I mean, it was like a major disease with me. I just never, if I would have had sports, I'd probably be dead. There were so many times I wanted to commit suicide. And of course, that's the devil too. He just wants to take us out. This person's more pretty. This person's just more flamboyant. This, as far as with they're just naturals at what they do. I wasn't a natural. I was the black sheep. But it's, through him that any one of us can change. It's just like you and you got to make sure that you're going to do what the Lord's called you to do. But just like with Jenny Stone, I'm going to go out and walk where the prostitutes are walking. And that, that's a pretty tough woman there. But, then she said, I'm going to go to Detroit and do it. Well, I said, I'll tell you where to go there too. We've ministered up there. But when you do it, and see, I'll talk to people that I haven't talked to for a long time, and they just can't even believe that I'm doing what I'm doing. But then that's that opportunity to open up. The Lord can transform your life. He did it for me. Yes, ma'am. Well, it comes with time. When I left my house that Friday night in September 1998, I was scared. That parking lot that I went into, and again, I left, I didn't know. My wife says, where are you going? I don't know. And I got tears coming down my face. But I was scared more because I didn't know the word. Wasn't built up, and that's what most Christians, as Pastor Jerry was just saying, that's what most Christians don't do. You've got to work out with that word and get that word ready. Because, see, in that parking lot, that's where I used to, it was a bar and a carry-out place. And I'd been in the parking lot before because I used to be a car repossessor. And I'd go in there because, that was like kind of central as far as the hood goes. And the most expensive thing on a wall, I had $20 snitch money. The most expensive thing on that wall was just a little bit under $20. So you get relatives and everything come in that bar, and I'd say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so's car. I'll buy you anything on the wall. So I'm buying booze, and then I'm going in and repossessing people's cars. But I was more afraid of the fact that, what am I going to say? I went out there not knowing and just passing out tracts. I had to start somewhere. But then now, it's again all him. But I don't care who the person is. The mayor, the president pops in, whatever. I'm going to share the gospel on those people. Once you do it, then you do it, and you're practicing, and you get good. You just, you can handle the situations you're in. But it's just going. And, the word says, do the work of an evangelist to fulfill your ministry. That thing, because a lot of them will put that thing, oh, that's your calling. No, we're all called. We've been preaching that one for a long time. But anybody else? Yes. Oh, and that's that thing is, it's clear in the Word that we're going to have trials and tribulation. And people, when they go through things, they can either get bitter or they can get better, And many people will sit around and suck on their thumb in church and have somebody comfort them. I've done that. But, you go and get comforted, and then you got to come back the next week just to get built back up so you can just attend church. But, I tell people, you've got to get over it. And really, what I went through, what Brother Al's going through, that was a strengthening time for me. I mean, my wife at the time, Mardi Gras 2010, she's in the hospital, just had brain surgery. And for those that knew her, I mean, she was a warrior on the streets. But I told her, I said, I'm not going to Mardi Gras this year. And I said, I'm not going to leave you. And Boogaloo ministered with her a lot. But she says, no, you're going to Mardi Gras. And I'm thinking, man, I remember getting on that plane. They must have thought, what is up with this big baby? He's coming on here, must be afraid of the plane or something. I just had tears, I mean, I'm leaving my wife in the hospital. First contact on Bourbon Street. Guy says, you don't know what I'm going through. Let me tell you what I'm going through. The Lord sent me here while my wife is dying in the hospital for you. That boy had tears running down his face. But again, going regardless of what the circumstances are. The Lord's got to be coming back as crazy as it's getting. We can't keep making excuses while people are dying and going to hell. It's time to get busy. Forget those excuses and get moving. Anybody else? Yes.
I don't have a question. I have kind of a statement. I'm listening to everybody's stories around here, and I love your picking a team analogy, because we have to realize that God doesn't pick His team like men. Okay, God's main focus is to glorify Himself. It's kind of His thing. Okay, and whenever He takes the weakest of us and the dirtiest of us, His glory shines brighter by taking the weakest of us and making us do extraordinary things like this guy's doing right here and there. So don't doubt. Don't have any doubts. Your maker is way bigger than anything or anybody or anyone out there. Like you said, guns. Don't worry about it, man. Your maker's awesome. Don't worry about your limitations or your doubts.
I think it's funny when they show their guns.
My family was worried about me going out and preaching the gospel on the corner, man. I was like, I got God, man. I don't care. There's if somebody came up and shot me, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to see my maker. Anyone who seeks to gain their life loses their life. But anybody who loses their life for Him finds it. You know what I'm saying? I had like tons of doubts. I was in the parking lot for like 30 minutes praying to God. I was like, man, I'm scared, and everything else. But then I thought about John the Baptist. Repent. The kingdom of time is at hand. You got to raise your voice. Just not enough time.
It's act a little crazy,
Well, the Bible does say we're a peculiar people.
That's it.
Make that joke back home with this other guy we go out with named Frank, and he just joined our church. And that's like the funny thing. It's like the inside joke, but it's not really a joke because it's written in the Bible. So, I just take it as a compliment. People think when I'm out on the street or, ministering to someone and I'm crazy, I'm a Jesus freak. Well, just take it as a compliment. So.
Mercedes, yes.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that I have brothers and sisters that tell me that I'm not bold like you are, or I speak low. I say, look, English